So thank you all for being here. Thanks for the opportunity to be here by Roshi, who's not here today. She's doing a workshop. And thank you, a special thanks to those of you who are holding down the Ongo schedule. Diane or Kosei, she's not here. She okay?
Yeah, she has work for her climate rally that has to get done.
Okay, right. Well, thanks to her for holding down the schedule. It's a lot to do extra. It's a lot of extra sitting to do. And it takes a lot of determination and inspiration. And so anyway, for those of us who aren't doing the full schedule or much more, please, right, we can practice our appreciation because it makes such a big difference to have somebody who's holding it down. It really creates the foundation and it holds the space for all of us to have a stronger practice. It's such a great benefit and such a gift to all of us from those who are really participating full time. It's a really, really big deal. So today I'm going to talk about something different than love, believe it or not. And we'll come back to it, I'm sure, in the future. But, it's nice to kind of give it our all, for me to give it my all, to try to flesh it out and really kind of get in there to have a deeper sense of it. For today, the koan I'm going to talk about is Hakujo's fox. And I was inspired from my last talk I gave. I talked about it just very shortly. And it wasn't really until the end of my talk that I realized how important it is to make this point, the points I was making. So I wanted to go back into the koan and talk about it a little more thoroughly, and also give some context to the points I want to make, which is really about the absolute and the relative. This is another old topic for me that I talked about a lot last year or earlier this year, about waking up to the relative and waking up to the absolute as two facets or branches of Zen and our Zen practice. And it's occurred to me to talk about this more because I think it's one of the underappreciated, aspects of Zen. Most of our koans, we could say, emphasize the absolute or emphasize the relative. But we don't really talk about it that way. It's not spelled out that way. It's taken me many years in my own mind to kind of sort out what's going on there and start to clarify it and pin it down a little more. And that's what I'm trying to do. And so as soon as a student wakes up to one or the other, the teacher tends to go, oh, well, you missed this, and the other side. So as soon as we wake up and we can give an absolute answer, then we're wrong because we're not given the relative answer. As soon as we wake up to the relative and we're giving a relative answer, we lose because we're not expressing the absolute. So it's constant. It's a kind of a game of catch me if you can. And if I get stuck one place and you catch me there. And so it's constantly trying to weave both of them together enough to give answers that express both sides. And so hopefully the way I'm talking about it can help, make navigating that a little clearer or a little easier maybe to see. And so I'm going to share my screen now. let's see, share the whole screen. This is my, so I wrote up this cheat sheet about it. So there's waking up to the absolute on one side and waking up to the relative on the other side. And so a lot of this is pretty obvious and common sense to a point. And so the way we talk about it, so the absolute is right, it's where I put God and perfection and nothingness. And so the no self and the gateless, right? The koan is from the gateless gate. So the gateless part of the gateless gate is the absolute. And then the gate is the relative. And so Zen clearly talks about merging these two and practicing both. You know, that's not unknown, right? That's pretty much in our face a lot, merging both of these. But it's sorting them out and really seeing what's going on there that I'm working on. And so just to go through this list, so there's like being present, and then I just put being around, right? There's sitting when I'm just fully present and I'm just here and I'm right dialed in. But most of the other time, I'm just kind of, I'm around, I'm here or there. I'm thinking about yesterday or tomorrow. I'm kind of in this ballpark. Same with being here, right? So there's being now and here. Is being right here, or am I just kind of floating around a little jumbled? Stillness and action, objectivity and emotion, acceptance, as opposed to having a vision of change and progress, perfection and imperfection, nothingness versus everythingness, just this and just that, thusness and taking care, right? There's acknowledging thusness. It's all thus. It's just here as it is, which is different than taking care of thus, taking care of how it is. I and me, you know, tend to be this, the Buddha when he woke up, I alone am the world honored one. It's all about me. It's bringing it back to me versus us and we. Homogeny and diversity. You know, this is off the, you know, this is not a scientific paper. This is just off the cuff, right? So we can create our own list. And then this koan that I'm going to talk about, Hakujo's fox, it's really the difference between free from karma and tied to karma. And so, and you know, I want to put it out there that, right, as a teacher, when I'm working with people, within like 5 minutes, usually we all give ourselves away. Most of us are usually stuck on the absolute, or we're stuck on the relative, which is right. It's natural. That's just part of what our practice is to recognize this. But it doesn't take long, you know, so we can all notice ourselves, the way we talk about things. Do I tend to think that God is perfect? Right? Is that my go-to, my default? Oh, God is perfect. Or a Zen teacher is perfect. Or my parents are perfect. Or the authority must be right. These are default patterns of thinking. And we expose ourselves pretty easily when we start talking about things. Do I tend to think the self is better. It's better to be moving. Is it better to be helping others? Is it better to be doing social action than it is to be sitting in oneness? That's a default to the relative. Is it better to be taking care of everything? Is it better to be diverse? Is it better to be working on our karma? Anyway, these are just kind of the ways we talk. Like if you talk through these things and just free flowing, we start to notice how we're siding with one side over the other, right? Is it hard for us to believe that we are perfect? Is it hard for me to see that my mistakes are perfect? Right? That difficulty is part of this deferring to one side. So anyway, there's so much here, right, to work with and talk about and practice with. I'm just introducing that concept of how it shows, it manifests wherever we have a side, we side with a bias, we can expose ourselves. We can notice that for ourselves if we pay attention. And so I'll go to the koans first before going through all the other things. So these koans, I picked out just a few koans kind of off the top, and most of these are the first 10 chapters of the Gateless Gate, is most of these koans right here. So to my mind, with what I'm working on, I put Hakujo's fox and the absolute mu as an absolute koan. One finger, Gute's one finger koan as an absolute. Buddha or Makashapa's one flower. The rhinoceros fan. These are all classic koans. And then on the relative side, it's the sound of one hand. Wash your bowls. Man up a tree who's stuck with dilemmas. Unman's shit stick, right? Realizing how screwed up we are is one aspect of seeing that. Seijo's soul is separated, right? We have separations within us that we need to bridge. We need to practice to bridge. And again, right? This is still in progress to talk about these koans this way. It's a kind of a, so right, some of these might change if we talk through them and I see it differently or we see it differently. It could kind of shift more to one side or the other. And of course, all this is with all this in mind. It's not, a hard line with this. These can change, and they're a blend. A lot of them do blend and have aspects of both. So I'm just making a simple division for the point of making the point. And so with Hakujo's fox, it's about this karma. It's about being free from karma versus being tied to karma. And the koan, right? These guys are pretty serious. It's not like, oh, ha, 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 he was a fox for 500 years. No, it's like, oh my God, he was suffering and struggling and miserable for 500 lifetimes because of this. Where am I going? Oh, Kindle right there. Okay. So the story of Hakujo's fox, I'll read through the important parts. Once when Hakujo was delivering Zen lectures, he was an abbot of a mountain monastery. An old man was in attendance, unseen by the monks. At the end of each talk, as the monks left, so did he. But one day he remained after they had gone, and Hakujo asked him, "Who are you?" The old man replied, "I am not a human being, but I was a human being when the Kashapa Buddha preached in this world. Then I was a Zen master living on this mountain," right? So this was a Zen master, is the fox. He was a Zen master. At the time, one of my students asked me whether or not the enlightened man is subject to the law of cause and effect. I answered him, the enlightened man is not subject to the law of cause and effect, because the answer evidenced a clinging to an absolute. I became a fox for 500 rebirths, and I am still a fox. Will you save me from this condition with your Zen words and let me get out of a fox's body? Now I may ask you, is the enlightened man subject to the law of cause and effect? Hakujo said, the enlightened man is one with the law of cause and effect. At the words of Hakujo, the old man was enlightened and set free. And so we see here, I think part of what I clarified over the last few talks was that rebirth is an aspect of Buddhism. Most of Buddhist worldview hinges on rebirth and reincarnation. You know, it's one thing to say, just be here and don't worry about it. You know, that's how I was tended to, I learned to talk about it. But I still think that's half the story, right? That's deferring to the absolute. Just be here now, don't worry about anything else. That's an absolute default. To go into that, to go into what's underneath that, you really have to get into reincarnation and this karma, this karmic consequences of actions. And I'm not saying you have to believe in reincarnation at all. I'm not telling anybody you have to do that. What I'm saying is that is the worldview and the foundation that we make sense out of all this. This makes sense relative to that worldview. If you don't want to believe that, that's fine. But I think it's important to understand that that is where this is coming from, and that it is a part of the function of the relative is to see karma, to understand karma, to have a vision of where karma comes from and where it goes. Whatever that is, right? It can still be anything. It may look differently than I think it does, or we think it does, or Buddha thinks it does, but it's still karma. There's still something that's going to happen. There's cause and effect. So anyway, this is a very serious koan about this. So to put it in a context that I think makes a little more sense, because I think the way the classic koans talk about things, it minimizes the human condition, and it minimizes the human faults, you know, because the closest I can approximate today's like a scenario from today is one of these teachers who got kicked out of destroyed their sangha for sex abuse. We have these Zen masters who, for one reason or another, have gained enough power and hierarchy in their hierarchy to abuse their students and have nobody tell, right? And it's devastating, and it ruins lives. So it's not just about, oh, I answered the question wrong and I was reborn for 500 lifetimes in hell, right? No, it's a very serious thing. It's like, no, I burned my students. I destroyed the lives of my students as a Zen master because I didn't get the relative side. And the relative side is taking care of our shit. It's seeing my karma. It's seeing that I am stuck and I have issues and I have addictions and I need to take care of them. And I need to be transparent, and I need everybody in the Sangha to know about my issues and my problems in order for me to teach at all. And so, you know, that's a closer approximation or example, I think, of what this karmic question really addresses. It's not like, oh yeah, casually got an answer wrong. No, it's really being bad. It's really being bad. And it's really not taking care of our stuff. And so this guy, right, he's a Zen master in the mountains 2,000 years ago, probably ruined his students' lives. It wasn't just a simple answer. He probably destroyed lives by being arrogant and thinking that he was literally outside of cause and effect. It's like, no, I'm awakened, I'm enlightened, I'm the boss, and so I'm free from cause and effect. Which doesn't necessarily mean free to do anything I want, but it means my idea is free. In my mind, I am free from cause and effect. And so anyway, that's devastating. Talking about deferring to one side or the other, right? This is where a lot of the abuse in our lineage has come from, is teachers deferring to the absolute. It's like, no, just be here now. You don't need to talk to other people. It's all here within you. Perfection doesn't need work. Whatever these teachers might say to students, to create this culture of deferring to the absolute. And so, anyway, so it's serious. It's a serious matter for all of us. I believe in turn that there's another Zen master who has not achieved enlightenment, who was a good person, who may not have had these faults, and also was born into 500 lifetimes as a fox. I'm not saying that waking up to this, that just waking up to one side is going to improve our karma necessarily. I believe we're all going to experience our karma one way or another, right? I believe we're all going to wake up. You are all going to wake up. Everybody here is going to wake up at some point, right? Whether it's here at the Zen Center or whether it's in your next lifetime or the lifetime after that, doesn't even matter. You're going to wake up. And so, right, so from that standpoint, we can take a breath, relax a little bit. We don't have to try to force anything in here at the last minute. It's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give away as much love as possible because I'm scared of my karma, right? But that's different. That's a little different. So we're all going to wake up. We all have our karma. He would have probably been reborn as a fox for 500 lifetimes if he deferred to the relative, right? If he wasn't awakened. And he said, no, you always have to struggle to help your students. That answer is just as bad as, no one needs to do anything. There's no karma for enlightened people. So anyway, part of not deferring to the absolute or the relative is seeing that we all are going to experience our karma at the same rate, basically. So he was stuck in the absolute, right? He's a Zen teacher and he's stuck in the absolute. And he got help from another teacher to simply say the words, you are subject to karma, you have karma, right? And that woke him up to the relative side, right? So he woke up to the relative side and then was free from being stuck in the absolute. And so the reason I keep talking about this is that working on the relative side has been left out, I think, of our history, our lineage from the Buddha's times. And I think that we've suffered the consequences for that. The teachers who have come through and not worked on their relative issues. Zen and Buddhism has taken a huge hit in the last decade, a couple of decades, publicly, for this, right? It's likely that Zen has been set back 500 lifetimes because of our deference to the absolute, and the hierarchy that tends to revolve around that. And the issues that go with that. And so to finish up this koan, Obaku is another, let's see, one of Hakujo's. He's a famous teacher as well. And he asked Hakujo, I understand that because a person gave a wrong Zen answer a long time ago, he became a fox for 500 rebirths. But now I want to ask, if a modern master is asked many questions and he always gives the right answer, what will become of him? Hakujo said, come over here and I'll tell you. Which is kind of, anyway, it's like these old Zen masters, right? He'll slap him. If he gets close, he's going to slap him. Right? Because that kind of questioning, that kind of overthinking, it's logic, trying to break it down logically. And he is, right? He is a modern master. Come over here and I will tell you. He beat him to the punch, though. The student went up and slapped the teacher first, and the teacher thought that was great. Like, okay, that's good. That's a good answer. The enlightened man is one with the law of cause and effect. How can this answer set the fox free? To understand this clearly, one has to have just one eye. But this one eye is not the absolute I, right? I think that's part of what's easy to confuse. To have the eye of oneness does not mean everything is one. To have the eye of oneness means everything is two and one. Everything is one and everything is separate. Everything is perfect and everything needs a lot of progress. Everything is free from karma and everything is subject to karma. That's the one eye, is to see that both are equally, have equal merit and weight in this equation of life. Controlled or not controlled, the same dice shows two faces. Not controlled or controlled, both are a grievous error. So this does express that, right? This does express that realization that both are essential, and that if we defer to one or the other, we lose it all. Okay, and so these other koans, right? If you've worked on Mu, right? Mu is about just being the questioning. What is it? What is Mu? Fully being here now with this is a real practice of oneness. It's practicing being one, using the energy of questioning. Like there's an energy of doubt, an energy of questioning, which cultivates that awakening. I'm not going to go through explain all the koans. I'm just going to just touch on, try to be quick about this, touch on some of the activities that you might expect to see from these different aspects of practice. So of course, right, the sitting, the zazen, sitting still in zazen is a practice of oneness. Being inclusive is a practice of oneness. Seeing clearly is a practice. Practice seeing clearly, trying to see clearly, which is different than opening my blind spots, right? So you can see, for example, the teachers and the Zen masters who see clearly when they give a Dharma talk. They see clearly when they're sitting still. But if they're not helping students to see their own blind spots and they're not opening their own blind spots, then they're not seeing clearly, because you have to be working on the relative to manifest the absolute, and vice versa. This not knowing. Not knowing is of course powerful and incredible practice, but it means nothing without the knowing, without the refining our judgment. We need to be able to judge. I need to be able to say, yes, I know this. In so many ways, right? We need to know, and we need to be able to say, I don't know. Right? Saying I don't know is different than not knowing. And refining, right? So working on ourselves to continue doing practices. And Zen we have most of these practices, right? We have a lot of practices that cover this. If we all participate in all the practices all the time, then we're really doing it. And I did that, right? I did that as a priest for 10 years. And it's invaluable. I'm so glad I did that. I'm so glad I had the structure in my life to do that. I structured my life around the practice so I could do that. And I see how difficult it is to do for those of us who are not structuring our life around the practice anymore. It's hard to do all this in 2 or 3 hours a week. It takes a good 10 hours a week to really fully be practicing all of these things. So anyway, it's for us to pick and choose, to try to self-analyze ourselves and see where we're stuck, where we defer to one or the other, and then how we can work on it. Choose to have a practice that we work on this with. So I recommend doing at least one practice a week of working on whatever our weak side is. Learning new strategies. So I think that's it, right? I think you get the idea. And so with that, I will open it up, and for anybody who has questions or comments or inspirations, please do.